today we're going to be tearing down this old hoop coop. I already got the tarp removed and reusing that cattle panel in order to create a secondary run for my dogs. So we're going to be building a fence right here so the dogs have a nice big area to run in. So here we go. So the first thing I had to do was take the cattle panel out. Now, of course, if you're using brand new cattle panel, you don't have to worry about this. I'm using a repurposed cattle panel that I used originally for the hoop coop structure. So I could have taken out each individual staple. However, I found it was just as easy to use a grinding wheel and grind them off. So that's what we're doing here. I think one of the most important things whenever using any kind of cutting tools is proper PPE. That's personal protective equipment. Now, obviously, I'm not wearing long sleeve shirts. That'd be ideal. I'm pretty used to it. But I always do wear eye protection. Ear protection is also recommended, but eye protection is a must. You can't do this without eye protection. There's just too many sparks that fly. So make sure that you are being safe when you're doing this kind of thing. And you can see I'm also wearing gloves just because of all the sharp metal that I'm dealing with. Now, in addition to taking these cattle panels down, I am repurposing the hardware cloth at a later time. So you can see right here, I'm actually rolling it up as best as possible. I always find it's extremely difficult to roll this up in an effective way, but we do the best that we can. So I got all the metal down. I'm going to be saving that piece of plywood for later, and I'm going to use some of this plywood for something else as well. But knock it down. Boom. Yeah. Sometimes demolition is fun. So now that I have all the materials, I'm going to be using these fence staples. So if you're looking around Home Depot, they're called fence staples. They're typically going to be around the nails. Sometimes it can be kind of difficult to find them. But I'm going to be placing these. Now, I do want to keep them level as possible, and I did cut them to size as well. I didn't show in here cutting them to size. It's the same thing using that grinder. And I'm tapping in on top each side. So I do one side, make sure that it's all level, move it where I need to move it, and then just hammer the staples into the fence. You could use a nail gun with staples. Because I'm using the larger fence staples, I didn't use my nail gun on this. I wanted to make sure that I got it as level as possible because I do want it to look fairly nice when I'm done with it, even though nobody's really going to be seeing it. For the second part, once I have the bottom piece on, then I'm measuring out. As you can see, I'm counting there. I count about 7 times. You know, you're supposed to count twice or measure twice and cut once. I usually count and measure about 13 times, and I still always find a way to mess it up. But right here, just grinding it down, you can see how I'm using the grinding wheel to cut off each of those parts. And then once I have that, we're going to go ahead and place it up, and we got a perfect fit right there for the length. Now we just got to do the height. Same thing. I'm counting across because I know exactly how many pieces I need. And again, you can see I'm wearing these actually are safety glasses. They're polarized safety glasses so that I can work out inside the sun. And we're going to make sure. Let's see how we did here. Oh, missed a spot. All right, so let's see how this fits up here. Now, I do most of my stuff by myself. My wife can help, and a lot of times I do get my wife to help. I don't have to worry about leveling this as much because I already leveled the first one. So as long as everything was cut in square, which these are already set up with squares, I can just place it exactly how I need to place it. And of course, hammer those fence staples in. I don't have an exact number to give you on how many fence staples. You can do one every single square. I don't do them every single square. I kind of balance them out. But I'm putting on the top board here. I call them stringer boards. But when you're doing this by yourself, you can see how I did that. I took another 2x4. I lean it at an angle on where I'm planning on placing this one. I'm pre-drilling my screws here, so it's easier once I put it up top. And you can see how I balance it. Now, it's not level right now. I just need it to hold. So one part, it's level. I move it in. Now I can take my level, go to the other side, make sure that it is level, and then screw that in from there. Now, the only issue with this is I realized it was too far over on the right-hand side. So I'm going to have to cut this board just a little bit. That's okay, though. Again, that's why you measure twice and cut once. I didn't measure this at all, but we got it done. So once I had that right side done, now it's time to do the left side. You can see again that I'm using those angled boards, screwing in a side, and then I'm leveling it. So we got one screw there. Go to the other side, screw it in there. And that's it. That's how you put those top boards up when you're by yourself. You just got to use the tools that you have as best as you can. Now, of course, on the bottom, I'm not as worried about it being level on the bottom, but I'm going to do the best that I possibly can just because the ground that I have is not level. So right now, off screen, I'm cutting that board, putting it in. It's kind of hard to see on the left-hand side. It's actually higher than the right-hand side for the yard. The yard does slope down onto that fence that's on the right, but not a huge deal. These boards are also helping, and I'm putting them on the outside of the cattle panel because it's holding the cattle panel. So when my dogs do jump or push against it, they're not just pushing against the staples, they're pushing against that wood. So that wood is just adding a little bit extra strength so that they're not going to be getting out of there. I did on that middle part that's open is going to be a door. You'll see that in just a second, but I left that exactly how it is. I'm putting that board all the way across so that the board is going to act as a stopper for the door itself. Now here's the door. I'm not showing you how to build a door. I mean, it's fairly simple. It's a rectangle. I didn't do anything special. Just make sure that I had screws that were long enough. But I'm placing the cattle panel on top of it so I can see exactly where I need to cut. This way I don't need to worry about measuring and getting it wrong because I'm placing it directly on top of it. So I'm cutting all those pieces there. That way it will fit. And what's great is this length right here is about 16 feet for this fence. I'm able to use 2 cattle panels. They're 16 feet long, so it worked perfect. They're also 50 inches high, which is more than I need. Now, I did say I placed this so that I didn't have to worry about double cutting it. Of course, I placed it in the wrong spot, so we're double cutting it. That's okay because I'm going to repurpose these extra pieces for something that you're going to see in just a little bit. And I am just using regular wood that you would get from Home Depot. This is all new wood. A lot of times I use repurposed. You can see that I have those brackets, the metal brackets that I use to help build it. I found that those just help with the sturdiness of it. I didn't need them, but again, I'm going to have dogs in there. My biggest dog, he's about 75 pounds. The other ones are anywhere between 30 and 40 pounds. So the big one, he's the one that likes to get out. I want to make sure that it's strong. I want to make sure that if he jumps against this gate, it's not going to break down. Of course, I can see some helpers here, providing a lot of assistance. And I do like to have them help as much as possible, especially my son. When he stands there and watches, I always explain to him exactly what I'm doing so that as he gets older, he can provide more assistance and he can also do things on his own. So he's not left to requiring people to pay to do simple projects for him. In this section though, I placed the staples about every foot or so, just to make sure again that I had the strength that I needed, and I had a few staples left over. So I went ahead and used them for this thing. So door is done. It's time to hang it. I placed the hinges. I believe I did it 8 inches from the top and 8 inches from the bottom. It might have been 9. There is specific areas you're supposed to put it. I'm a rebel, so I just always do it about 8 to 9 inches away. And then I placed one exactly in the middle. Now, again, I could have done this myself. If I did it myself, I would have done the top first and then done the bottom, possibly having to go back and do the top. But this worked out because my wife was able to help me to make sure that everything was plumb. Had to move a little bit of dirt out of the way. And then, of course, on the outside, I had to put the actual piece to attach it. Now, with this, normally you would put your gravity latch on the right side or the actual post itself, and then you put the arm that it connects into on the door. But because the door is opening on the inside, I had to do it reverse. So the actual arm is on the post, and then the gravity latch is on the door, which you'll see right about here. I'm putting on the arm so you can see how it's attaching there, so that it opens and closes. So the door's on, it's time for the footer. You can see these bricks. Again, these bricks are repurposed. These bricks were buried in my yard. I mean, they're just all over the place. I have so many bricks, but I'm digging down on the other side of the fence. The reason I'm doing this is we're gonna be placing these bricks down. So if the dogs are trying to dig out, they're going to run into those bricks. It's also great because when you're stepping in, you're not stepping into a big mud puddle. You just have those bricks as a little tiny pathway. To kneel down, it seems very simple, but that's actually a piece of leather. It's a piece of leather that I got from a couch that I ended up throwing out. So when I was tearing it apart, I had extra leather, so I went ahead and used that. But I got my little helper here. He's bringing me bricks one by one, helping out as much as he can. And I'm just making sure that I pack those bricks down so that they're level and they're not affecting the way that the door itself closes. So skipping forward a little bit here, I got 2 rows of bricks in there. You can see the door opens and closes perfectly fine. Now it's time to go ahead and fill in the gaps. So I dug it out. Now I got my son, my little helper there. He's helping put the extra pieces. So while he is putting the dirt into the spot with the front, I'm showing him again right here. Put the dirt in, pack it down with your foot. I'm actually going to be going over to the backside to do those bricks. So I go in the back and I'm putting the bricks by the back gate because I do have a gate on the other side that opens up into the front yard. All right, folks. So you can see we have our cattle panel fence. Now you can do this a couple different ways. You can do it on the other side if you want. This one, the dogs, if they jump against it, I feel like that's going to be perfectly fine. You can do it on the other side if you feel like you're more comfortable with that, and then put some cross boards to protect it as well. We have the ones at the top and we have the ones at the bottom. We put the bricks down here, so this is going to prevent the dogs from digging out on this side. I'm not as worried over here. This was just a little bit lifted. And then I actually took the cutoff pieces and stuck them into the ground. So those go down about 6 inches, again, to help prevent the dogs from digging right there. And then we also have a fence along here, which eventually I'll put across the top. But that's how you build a cattle panel fence. We're actually going to be doing this on our entire property, around the whole yard, so that we can do it, because it's a lot cheaper. Because a 50-inch by 16-foot cattle panel in my area is about $35. For that same amount of pickets, I want to say it's like 160 bucks. So $70 versus 160. It's a lot cheaper and it's a lot stronger. Yeah, Bubba.
Do you feel I make it too? You can remind me it too.
What's that?
You can remind me it too.
Yes, and he also helped me with it. My little helper. It's always good to have a helper.
Yep.
So, and he did that with the brick. He just stamped that in so that it's more in the ground. I'm going to clean up this area. We're going to get all that dirt out. We're going to rake it out. And we're going to bury our...
We're going to rip it out.
That's right. And that's a French drain. So we'll be putting the rock in before we put the puppies in, because they're going to tear up that French drain if I don't. So that's it. Enjoy homesteading.